All right, we are live. I'm going to give a few minutes before I really kick things off here. Ryguy, Max, Drop Top. Okay. Okay, there we go. Chaotic, welcome. I'm just going to give another minute or so for people to come in, and then we'll get underway. Probably not going to be a very long stream tonight. I have some stuff going on here, and I don't want to spend too long talking when relatively minor stuff has happened, but there's some interesting stuff that has happened lately, and I thought I'd go ahead and try to do the best I can to make a video that discusses it. So yeah, I'm going to give people like another 30 seconds to get in here, and then we're going to get underway, and if we pick up more people on the way, then, well, cool. How do I sound, by the way? I think I'm using my good microphone, and I'm using the good webcam as well, so it all should look good, but I think it'll sound good too. Okay. All right, so it looks like we got close to double digits people in here. And first I want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. A couple things have happened in the last few days, and even though I'm still not really in a good position for it, as you guys can clearly see, I thought I'd go ahead and try my best to do a stream tonight. And yeah, this may be the setup I end up being forced to use when free agency starts, because I don't think my room is going to be ready for a little while. So yeah. All right, so first of all, we recently hit another small subscriber milestone. My first subscriber milestone in almost a month. Not gaining subscribers lately at all. It's the off season. It's the deadest part of the off season. Yes, Drop Top, new camera. So I picked up a few subscribers in the last few days because some stuff actually happened, so that was cool. So thank you to all the subscribers. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get underway. So I've discussed some of these things in videos, but a couple things happened with the Seahawks recently. Most interestingly, probably, is that we decided to tender a few of our restricted free agents. A couple of them were exclusive rights free agents, and a couple of them were just restricted. Just to cover what this is real quick, in case anybody out there doesn't understand, exclusive rights free agents, which is what Bryan Mone and Kyle Fuller were, basically means if the team that has those players wants to keep them, they're going to keep them. They're going to offer them a 1-year minimum contract with no guarantees, and basically if another team wants to sign that player, they have to give up a draft pick to the player who had the exclusive rights on that player. So you can rest assured that unless an ERFA retires, if the team tenders them, they're going to stick around, unless the team decides they don't want them. So first two things that happened a couple days ago was Bryan Mone and Kyle Fuller signed their tender as exclusive rights free agents. So basically, they're going to be here in 2021 on 1-year, $850,000 contracts. So 8 years, $150,000, which is the minimum you can pay a player with their level of experience. And we can cut them at any time before the season, I think, and all that money goes away. So we have a lot of leverage here, and there's no reason for these guys to not be happy to play for that amount of money, because they haven't really done anything in the league. So anybody has any thoughts on that in the chat, now is the time to go ahead and voice it. But basically, Bryan Mone will be a Seahawk in 2021, which I wanted, and Kyle Fuller will be as well, which I actually didn't want, because I don't see anything with Kyle Fuller other than a warm body. So I'm actually kind of hoping we can find a better solution in the time between now and the season, so we can maybe get a better backup guard / center, and maybe just move on from Fuller entirely. But Mone has proven himself to be capable of being the number 3 defensive tackle. And I think that's good news. Having Mone around for $850,000 sounds good to me. Again, I think Fuller is as replacement level as it gets, but that's fine. And the other thing that happened, which was earlier today, was that Neal was also tendered. And I believe Neal was just a... Oh, yes, he was also an exclusive rights free agent. And I believe... Water pump, sorry guys. I believe he got the same deal, 1 year, $850,000, and people are actually a little more excited about this one, I think, than the other two, because Neal actually made some game-winning plays last year. He helped us win the Miami game, he helped us win the Dallas game, and I think he actually helped us win the Minnesota game. So he actually put his footprint on some of our key wins last year. So that's good news, and what it basically means is that after the Dunlap cut, the Seahawks had about $21 million in free agents in cap space. So after these two signings, I think we're down to around $18.5 to $19 million. So whatever you're thinking we should do for the rest of this offseason, it's going to be with the $18.5 to $19 million of cap space we have right now. There are still things we can do, and I've discussed them in the past, but for now, that is what we have. And the interesting question to me, and what I want to talk about for a little bit, is that enough for us to have a good offseason with? And I actually think it is. And obviously, everybody's going to have different takes on what they would qualify to be a good offseason. Some people would say you got to bring back Dunlap, and I'm down with that. I understand where they're coming from. I don't think it has to be Dunlap, but it has to be somebody like Dunlap. So, 3 years, $30 million is obviously on paper a big chunk of that $18.5 to $19 million. But the interesting thing there is that if you take a look at J.J. Watt's contract, you can backload the ever-loving hell out of these contracts. I think J.J. Watt signed a $31 million deal, and the cap hit for 2021 is only going to be like $4 million or $5 million. So you could sign Carlos Dunlap to a 3-year, $30 million deal that pays him honestly, $3 or $4 million that first year. So if you do that with him, $3 to $4 million. If you do it with Corey Linsley, you could give him a similar deal. You could maybe only pay him $4 million for that first year. And then you have guys like Gerald Everett, who I also really want to bring in. He's probably going to be 3 years, $18 million. Sorry if you guys can hear my sugar glider. I need to go get him up and let him run around for a little bit. But I'll do that right after the stream. Quandre plays safety. I think Neal's more of a corner, but he can play both. I want to say that. Neal's a good safety backup and a good corner backup. Rather have Austin Blythe than Zeitler. I think I agree. Also, I think Zeitler might cost more than Blythe, so that's another factor as well. So anyway, if you give Gerald Everett $6 million a year, but it's only $2 million that first year, then you've actually only charged an additional $10 to $11 million bucks against the cap, and you brought in Dunlap, Linsley, and Everett. Now, that kicks some problems down the road, but every team has to deal with those problems, and they're the problems that you have to deal with when you're trying to build a Super Bowl caliber team with an expensive quarterback. So, I think that we may very well have enough room under the cap for a good offseason, because even with everything that I just said, you can still tender Poona Ford, which I'll be talking about a little more in a moment here. So, one other thing that happened today is we got a report that the Seahawks have decided to not tender Jordan Simmons. And I think that probably would have been 1 year, $1 million, $1.1 million, $1.2 million. It would have been pretty damn cheap, but it would have been somewhere in that realm. And that kind of tells me that he's probably not going to be back. I have to believe that any contract he gets outside of the restrictions of RFA is going to be bigger and longer term than that, and I don't know why we would want to do that. He didn't play that well last year. So, yeah, Jordan Simmons looks like he's out, and I don't think anybody's going to miss him. If somebody does, go ahead and say so in chat. But I don't think anybody here is going to really miss Jordan Simmons. So now let's get to maybe the most, well, okay, I don't want to say the most interesting question, but the most pertinent question right now is the NFL earlier today set the official restricted free agent tender amounts. And basically, this factors in heavily to what we're going to do with Poona Ford in 2021, because Poona Ford is a restricted free agent, but unlike the exclusive rights free agents, he's somebody who really might have a demand out there if he were to hit the open market. And obviously, because we have this restricted free agent contract on him, there's no reason for us to do that. So I think it's very obvious that we're going to place one of these tenders on him. The question is which one. So basically, if we place, here's how it works, if anybody in chat doesn't know. A restricted free agent tender is this. If you place a first round tender on a restricted free agent, then you pay them this year about $4.8 million. So they effectively get a 1 year, $4.8 million. 1 year, $4.8 million for 1 year. And then the next year he becomes unrestricted. If a team wants to sign Poona Ford away from us, then they have to give him more than that. And they have to give us their first round pick. If we place the second round tender on him, everything is the same, except we would only have to pay him $3.38 million for 1 year. So his salary would go down by about $1.4 million. And if a team wants him, they would have to give us their second round pick. And this is kind of where you start playing a little bit of chess, because you can only do this once. You can't put a second rounder tender on him and then later change your mind and be like, oh, we want to give him a first round tender. You only get one chance at this. So it's almost like you're playing a game of chicken. How much is somebody going to be willing to give up for Poona Ford? And I think that even though I like Poona a lot and he's clearly a very solid player, I seriously doubt that anybody's going to give up a first round pick for him, and I also doubt that anybody would be willing to give up a second round pick for him. There are quality run stuffing defensive tackles out there. So looking at this, it seems to me that we could give Poona Ford the second round tender of 1 year, $3.4 million. And if somebody wants to give us their second round pick, then I'm not even going to get that mad about it. Like, Poona's good, but second round picks, you can get good players with that. So the original round tender is not relevant here. Poona was not drafted. Right of first refusal only, I think, would be a mistake here. Poona is good enough to have somebody wanting to sign him. So, yeah, I feel like we just slap the second round tender on Poona, and I don't think there's any way he's going anywhere. I don't think anybody will give up the money and the pick for him. So we have basically nothing to worry about. Poona will be back on a very cheap, very reasonable deal where he will be well under his market value as long as he stays healthy. He is clearly better than a $3.4 million player. He's even developed a little bit as a pass rusher. So Poona looks like he will be staying put, and now we know what kind of money we're going to have to give him. So the final thing I want to talk about for a little bit here, and this is the one thing that really merits discussion, is the cap cuts. We are in the middle of cut-a-thon 2021. A lot of players are getting cut. A lot of veteran players that are making big salaries teams can no longer afford. So this is something that any team that has any cap room at all is going to want to keep an eye on, and I include the Seahawks in there because we have a little bit of cap room. We can create a lot more cap room if we want to, and some really good players are going to be out there for the taking. So we could spend some time going through all the different names that are getting cut, but the one I really want to focus on in this video is Chiefs former right tackle Mitchell Schwartz got cut in Kansas City, along with starting left tackle Eric Fisher. Now, I'm not going to waste any time talking about Eric Fisher. I think it's very obvious why we wouldn't sign him. But Mitchell Schwartz is a little more interesting. This is a guy who has been at an all-pro level in Kansas City for a few years now. He was really good in Cleveland before then. He was a second-round pick, so there's no doubting his talent. And at this point in his career, even if he wasn't a second-round pick, there would be no doubting his talent. So Mitchell Schwartz is one of the best right tackles in the league. I think he's turning 32 this year, so he is getting older, but he's still extremely good. Now, I haven't really talked about right tackle in my previous videos or previous streams very much because I've generally been against seeking help at the right tackle position. I have generally been under the impression that Brandon Shell was good enough. And if you take a look at Brandon Shell in 2020, his PFF grade of 72, and I want to stress, I don't put a ton of stock into PFF, but they do the best they can, and I acknowledge the effort, and I acknowledge the fact that they're probably one of the better sources you could use for evaluating the offensive line. I don't want to sit here and say, I saw him give up a sack this one time, therefore he's terrible. Or, I saw this one play where he smashed a dude, therefore he's a great player. PFF is at least trying. And I don't know if Brandon Shell really is one of the best right tackles in the league, but he's good. And that being said, good is not great. And I, earlier today, after Mitchell Schwartz got cut, and by the way, he's not alone. There are a couple other players you could get out there, like Riley Reif, who played right tackle for the Vikings last year. I think Darrell Williams, I think from Carolina, is out there, and he's probably going to get, and he's a well-respected right tackle. So I decided to pose the question, because this is something that I hadn't discussed before. I made a poll on my YouTube channel, should the Seattle Seahawks move on from Brandon Shell and seek an upgrade at right tackle this offseason? And the poll was pretty conclusive. Almost 2/3 of respondents said no. We did, however, have well over 50 yes votes, so clearly some people want to move on from Brandon Shell. Hey, Snacks, how you doing, my man? How you doing? You might want to stick around for the end of the stream because I do have a little bit of an announcement to make, but that might be a little more relevant to you. Oh, hell, I'll just do it right now because you're here. I did get my 3070. It will be here in 10 days. It is going to be here in 10 days. I finally got it. Both those dudes are busts. His injuries are serious. Riley Reif got injured? I don't remember that. I mean, I believe it. Of course, players get hurt all the time, but... yeah, okay. So, if you want to play this game, Mitchell Schwartz is obviously the best guy. You could get, him for maybe you could get him on a one-year deal because of the way the free agent market will play out this year, but you're probably looking at about $10 million a year. So anyway, yeah, Snacks, I thought you might want to know that. So when I get my computer set up next week, it should be ready to play pretty much anything. So yeah. Okay, anyway. So the question that I have for chat is, we've obviously talked about center because we need to do something at center. We've talked about left guard. We need to do something at left guard. But right tackle. Right tackle. Do we need to upgrade from Shell? And my stance on this has been no, and it still is no. But that doesn't mean it's not worth discussing. Keep in mind, however, that every upgrade you make at a position other than the obvious ones is one less chunk of money you'll be able to spend on other positions. So maybe you get Mitchell Schwartz and you cut Brandon Shell, but you may very well then not be able to get Corey Linsley. You may not be able to bring back Dunlap. You may not be able to bring in a Gerald Everett. You may not be able to do the other things you were thinking about doing this offseason, whoever it may be. Now, I will say this, having done the math in my head, it seems very, very possible that if you were willing to trade Lockett, if you were willing to restructure Wilson, which I don't think this team wants to do, Alaric Jackson, yes, Week 2K. That name keeps coming up every time I do a mock draft. I haven't taken him in one of my simulated drafts yet, but he's good. He's good. And he will probably be there late, like you say. So Alaric Jackson is a very, very appealing sleeper to me later in the draft, but obviously you would not expect him to start in 2021. Or you would hope that he wouldn't really, so yeah. It's not worth sacrificing Dunlap to upgrade. Yeah, I think I kind of agree. Now, if you moved Lockett, you could probably get Lindsley and Schwartz and still draft a guard in the second round who's ready to start at left guard from day one. And that's not that bad. You might, and you could probably get Dunlap as well. You might miss out on a tight end, I guess, but you might be able to live with that. So it kind of depends on what you are willing to kick down the road in order to win now. This team, I want to say this. A lot of people, I've had DMs, I've had messages with people saying like, Wilson isn't willing to restructure because he's greedy. I want to say something. And I say this as somebody who's not thrilled with Russell Wilson right now. I don't think Wilson doesn't want to restructure. I think Schneider doesn't want to restructure him. And the reason why is because he wants to maintain flexibility to move on from Wilson after this season. Because if we restructure, we're still going to have the same dead money problem next year that we are right now. If we don't restructure, then the problem becomes much smaller. So I think that Schneider is hesitant to pull that trigger. Aaron, Colin Cowherd is a moron. The Bears cannot do that. It is literally illegal. The NFL will not allow them to do any more than, I think, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and assorted players. The Bears cannot do that. Well, I'm not asking him to take a pay cut, Green Earth, and I don't think he will. I don't think he should as a human being and as an NFL player. However, there's the question of restructuring. And I think Schneider doesn't want to restructure him maybe more than Wilson because, like I said, it ruins your flexibility going forward. Mack, Foles, and 3 firsts. Well, Foles has negative value, so I'll pass on that. But the rest, I'm kind of feeling you. Yes, we need to upgrade from Shell, but can't do it this year. Just draft a rookie that will take his place when he gets hurt this season. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I do think there is a scenario where if you trade Lockett and then don't sign a replacement, and if you restructure maybe Wilson or Wagner and maybe one other player, there's enough room to get all these players. Now, you're going to screw yourself over in the future, but I don't think that it's out of question. Oh, okay, yeah, I see Green Earth. And guys, stop holding other people to the standard of Tom Brady. Okay? Stop holding other people to the standard of Tom Brady. Tom Brady is in a very rare situation where his wife could be a literal billionaire if she wanted to be. The only reason why she wouldn't be is because she spends money ridiculously fast. If she actually saved money for a couple years, she would be a billionaire. And number 2, he was paid illegally for years and years and years and years and years. He doesn't need money. It's very different from a guy like Russell Wilson, who doesn't have those things to fall back on and needs to make as much money as he can right now while he's still really, really good. Yeah, you weak 2K. That's kind of why I came around to the idea of bringing back Cedric Ogbuhi, because I think chaotic. There is no equivalency between Sierra. I think Sierra's net worth is like 30 million, and Giselle. I think Giselle's net worth is, God, I looked at it years ago. It was like $500 million, and it might be more now. I don't know. Maybe it's less, but her earning power is ridiculous. Sierra has nothing on it. No snacks. He had this business. It was called like the Tom Brady system. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It was like a fitness program or a training program. And basically, the Patriots organization paid him millions and millions and millions of dollars by paying that company money for nothing. So Brady got massive amounts of money from the Patriots that was outside the realm of the NFL. And the league, they were just like, oh, whatever. I don't know why they... I don't know why they didn't ever do anything about it. Maybe they couldn't. I mean, they did the same thing with the Broncos in the 90s, right? The Broncos did a whole bunch of stuff that was illegal for the cap, and they just were like, whatever. Yeah, this stuff is very well known by people who pay any attention at all to this stuff. But anyway, I know, Snacks. I mean, it's yeah, I get you. Oh, Daniel, I am shocked you don't know this. I am shocked you don't know this, Daniel. This is like one of the worst kept secrets in the NFL. The NFL does not actually care about salary cap stuff. The NFL basically, I mean, the Patriots basically laundered probably over the years tens or if not hundreds of millions of dollars to Brady through his bogus training program company thingy. And yeah, go look up what happened to the Broncos after they won the 2 Super Bowls. They had a ton of cap stuff, and they just ignored it, and they were like, the league just kind of shrugged their shoulders. It makes you wonder why every team just doesn't do that crap. So here's the question that I really want to ask at the end of this stream, because I think I'm going to end this thing pretty soon here. Should we go after a big-time right tackle this offseason and cut Brandon Shell, somebody like a Mitchell Schwartz? Or should we just hold fast with Shell and either push the replacement of him down the line and roll with Shell for 2021? Week 2K says QBs who give hometown discounts do so to keep their OL, not to hope team gets them one. Yeah, Week 2K. That's very true. Wilson is not exactly going to be jumping up and down to give his team a hometown discount when, at the end of the day, we had a ton of cap room last year and we spent it on garbage like Greg Olsen and BJ Finney. So, yeah. And again, I want to stress, when you're making decisions like this, keep this in mind. If you go get Mitchell Schwartz, it either forces you to do more things to hurt you in the future, or it forces you to not get another player. Yeah, Seahawks Jose Rodriguez. It's basically what it was. Everybody that I know who talks about football is aware of this. It's, I think, kind of the worst kept secret in the NFL. And speaking of Shell Corp, the current Seahawk who's under scrutiny right now is Brandon Shell. I just wanted to take a few minutes to tell people to not hold anybody else to the standard of Tom Brady. His situation is very unique. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get at there. All right, so I think I've kind of discussed everything I want to discuss. The only other thing we could do is look at some of the other players that have recently been cut and ask ourselves if we want to maybe go get them. Like Try Turner was a big one from the Chargers. He's a Pro Bowl guard from, I think, L.A. Yeah, L.A. Janoris Jenkins got cut, but I'm not interested in him at all. We already went over some of these guys in a recent video, like Quentin Jefferson. He's not a horrible idea if we lose Reed, but I'm not terribly excited about it. Some people were talking about Kyle Vanoy. I have no interest, and I don't know why anybody does. Kevin Zietler was brought up early in this stream. It's not a terrible idea. I think we can do better. The Saints released Emmanuel Sanders. If we lose Lockett, it's not the worst idea to give Emmanuel Sanders a very backloaded contract to replace him. And yeah, that's something to consider. Daniel, that's a discussion for another time. That's far more complicated. I'm not going to get into that at the tail end of a stream about another topic. eWeek2K says, keep Shell and kick that can down the road, draft a flyer at OT late in the draft. Yeah, I think that's what I prefer as well, but I wanted to talk about it for a minute. We really need to trade Reed or restructure his contract. All right, Snacks. Yeah, my computer is on the way. It will come. Trust me. At this point, it's just a matter of time. We really need to... Yeah, Empower. We need to do something about Reed, I think. I'm not crazy about having to pay him all that money this year. I would like John Brown if we move Lockett. Well, Daniel, I'll address what you said just really quickly here. The only way I'm okay with moving Wilson is if at some point in this plan we get a really good rookie quarterback who we can build around for a long time. I don't want to do this and then get saddled with like Ryan Fitzpatrick for a couple years, or even Sam Darnold. I guess I would be okay with him for a year, but I just don't think he's very good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. Just wanted to hear what you guys thought. It seems like people don't feel that strongly one way or the other about Shell and possibly getting a better right tackle. I think we are good with Shell for now. I don't think you can have 5 All-Pros on the offensive line. I just don't. I don't think you can do that and expect to field a real team. And if Wilson is asking for 5 All-Pro offensive linemen, then, he can get the hell out of here. All right, I'm out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. I'm just going to go ahead and call it good here. It seems like most people are on board with the Shell plan, so I'm gonna go ahead and move forward with that assumption and not discuss it very much. All right, see everybody later.